Some mysteries just seem to fade with time, but others get etched into the very landscape where they happened. And for almost 40 years now, the disappearance of a 4-year-old girl from the Montana wilderness has done exactly that. It's left this huge silence, just filled with really disturbing questions and some pretty chilling clues. So let's get into what we know. Follow the shadow. Just think about that for a second. These were reportedly the last words a playmate heard someone say to little Nyleen Marshall. A really strange invitation from some unknown man just moments before she completely vanished. I mean, it's a phrase that has haunted her family and investigators for decades. So where does this story even begin? Well, not with terror, but with something just totally ordinary. It was a beautiful summer day, a bunch of families getting together for a ham radio club picnic deep in Montana's Helena National Forest. The perfect setting for making memories. But it would soon become the scene of a nightmare that just won't end. What is so chilling about this is just how fast it all happened. We're talking around 4 p.m. on June 25th, 1983. Nyleen is just playing, catching frogs with the other kids. Her friends walk just a tiny bit ahead of her. And when they turn back around, and this could have only been a minute or two, she was just gone. And this is the little girl at the heart of it all. Nyleen Marshall. Just 4 years old, brown hair, blue eyes, dimples on both cheeks. She was barefoot, just wearing a simple yellow t-shirt and shorts. And these details are so important because they're pretty much the last concrete facts we have before everything just dissolves into this huge mystery. You can just imagine the moments after she vanished, that rising panic. A fun family outing instantly turns into a frantic search party. Parents are just screaming her name into these dense Montana woods. But all they heard back was silence. The response from the community was just immediate and enormous. I mean, look at this number. Almost 3,000 people. We're talking neighbors, total strangers, law enforcement. They all poured into the Elkhorn Mountains to look for one little girl. It's just a staggering figure that shows you the scale of the hope and, frankly, the desperation that just gripped that whole area. And the search itself was just incredible. I mean, they brought in scuba divers to check out flooded mines. They even brought in heavy equipment to literally drain ponds. Search dogs did pick up her scent near the creek, but then it just stopped. Completely stopped, as if she'd been just lifted up into the air. And despite all of that effort, they found nothing. Not a shoe, not a scrap of her little yellow t-shirt. It's like the earth just swallowed her whole. A volunteer who was actually there that day later described the feeling. He said every rock they overturned, every bush they pushed aside, it was a moment just caught between this desperate hope of finding her alive and the growing dread of finding something else. It's a feeling that I think never really left those mountains. So, for 2 years, there was just nothing. Complete silence. The case goes cold. And then, this absolutely shocking development from over 1,000 miles away. A series of phone calls and letters started to come in. And they weren't just offering theories. They claimed they had the answers. Okay, so here's the crucial point about this. The person writing these letters knew things. Things that only the family, the investigators, or the person who did this could possibly know. The calls were traced to phone booths in Wisconsin, and the letters were postmarked for Madison. The police knew right away this was way more than just some cruel prank. This was their first real lead in years. The writer kind of painted this picture of himself as a rescuer. He claimed he found a crying girl he called Kay and just decided to take her home and raise her himself. He described homeschooling her, traveling the world, giving her a happy life. It sounded bizarrely paternal, almost caring. But then the letters took a much darker turn. And this is where that whole narrative just shatters. The writer revealed this absolutely horrifying detail, which is clearly sexual abuse, while at the same time bizarrely claiming he'd never molested her otherwise. That caring facade just crumbled, and it revealed something deeply disturbing and predatory underneath. And the letters ended with this chillingly defiant statement, a declaration of possession. After these letters and a few more phone calls, the anonymous man just went silent again. He left investigators with this profile of a meticulous, disturbed, and totally elusive kidnapper. So the letters, they offered this really tantalizing but horrifying lead.
But the years that followed were just this painful maze of dead ends and strange coincidences and, unfortunately, even more tragedy for the Marshall family.
So in a really bizarre twist of fate, the search for Nyleen actually brought a different family a miracle. After her case was on the show Unsolved Mysteries, a tip came in about a girl in Washington. Well, it wasn't Nyleen, but it was another missing child, a girl named Monica Bonilla, and she was then safely reunited with her mother. A real moment of hope, but one that was born from another family's pain.
Then, in 1995, tragedy strikes this family again. Nyleen's mother, Nancy, who had searched tirelessly for her daughter for years, was found dead in a hotel room in Mexico City. Her hands were tied behind her back, the door had been kicked in, and yet local authorities initially ruled it as suicide. The family never believed it, and it just added this other layer of unresolved heartbreak to their whole story.
So, after all these years, where does the investigation even stand? It's really kind of boiled down to two dominant and really starkly different possibilities for what happened that day out in the woods. So, on one hand, could she have just wandered off? It's possible, right? That train is really unforgiving. But the fact that they found absolutely no physical evidence, even after that massive search, that's strange. But on the other hand, you have the abduction theory. And that's supported by the man in the jogging suit, that follow the shadow comment, the dogs losing her scent so suddenly, and I think most compelling of all, those incredibly detailed letters from Wisconsin.
So here we are, nearly 4 decades on. Nyleen Marshall's face, which you often see in those age-progressed photos, it remains a symbol of one of Montana's most haunting cold cases. It's just a story without an ending. And that brings us to where law enforcement has landed on this. Officially, this is not a case of a child who got lost in the woods. It is classified as an abduction. But the identity of the person responsible and the fate of Nyleen, they remain a complete mystery. And that just leaves us with the exact same questions they had back in 1983. Who was that man? Were those letters a twisted confession or just some elaborate, cruel hoax? And is it possible that somewhere out there, right now, there's a woman in her 40s who has no idea she was once a little girl named Nyleen who vanished from a picnic in the woods? This really isn't just a story from the past. It's an active cold case. The file is still open, and that hope for an answer, however remote it might seem, has never entirely disappeared.